All right, so the panel is about Polkadot education and sort of how to scale it. Everybody here is directly involved with education in one way or the other. So I think we're gonna explore opportunities and figure out a way to collaborate to settle all the challenges that are out there. Okay, so I'll start with some kind of introduction, setting a personal context of who we are, where we came from, and why blockchain and why Polkadot. So I'll start with myself. So I'm a technical education lead at Web3 Foundation. I've been working at the foundation for 1 year. Before that, I was a teaching professor in computer science at University of Vermont. I've been teaching artificial intelligence, and my research was computer vision. So if you know Coursera, so check Computer Vision Basics course. I taught that. So I come with that background, and then I chose blockchain technology as my career path because it's something that very much aligns with my own vision for what my life should be. So I want to bring all those skills to sort of scale the education effort here. So that's my journey. I kept it purposefully short, but feel free to expand on your own personal journey.
Thank you, Radha. Hello, everyone. Yeah, Zoe, my name from everywhere, as I got introduced just right now, but I think today I'm taking the position here as Global Head Ambassador for Polkadot. But as you heard before, I'm also working with the Parachain Phala network. My journey into Polkadot actually began 2018 while I lived in Silicon Valley. Back then I studied information cybersecurity there and worked on some blockchain projects for data security and integrity, and got pretty quickly actually introduced to the Bitcoin and Ethereum community in Silicon Valley, which was pretty big back then. And then I went to the first Stanford blockchain summit and saw Vitalik speaking and so on. And I think back there was the first Polkadot meetup on the West Coast with the old guys from Parity that are unfortunately not here anymore. But this was my first introduction to Polkadot, and I was so fascinated by the innovation of the technology, knowing about Bitcoin and Ethereum. I was just, wow, this is mind-blowing what is actually being built. And this was all pre-launch, right, 2018. So it was all concepts and does this even work? And how will this look like once the parachains are launching? And then Suraj, a friend of mine back then, he joined Parity also and got me into the ambassador program, which back then was created by Dan, Risa, and Hutch, actually working with Bob now at Zeitgeist. And since then I'm in the Polkadot ecosystem. I'm very happy about it and love to talk about education today.
Definitely.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Hoon Kim. I'm the CTO of Astar Network. So my journey to blockchain, I guess, first of all, I started Bitcoin when I was I think it was 2012 is when I first knew about Bitcoin through some. When I was a kid, I'm still a kid, but when I was a kid, I used to do a lot of hacking, and some clients would pay me in Bitcoin. I had no idea what it was. So it was it's magic internet money. So it was cool. But 2017, I think, was when I really started to see it like an actual magical thing, where I had no idea how this could even be still alive. So I started to tinker with a lot of mining pools and just look into the protocol a little bit. That's when I guess you can say I start to get really into the technical side of it. And now, fast forward a couple of years later, 2019 is when I first knew about Polkadot. Because I was working on a thesis at the time during my undergrad about asset settlement through an interoperable blockchain, basically creating a stock market on-chain completely, and tried that with Ethereum smart contracts, but didn't really scale well. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make my own blockchain. And I've heard about the history of Gavin Wood, and he's currently working on Polkadot, and the vision of Polkadot really snapped with me. It was amazing, connecting the world. Even the blockchain technology itself is a way to connect the world, how internet was, but going further, now it can connect between different blockchains. That was so amazing, and now I'm so in love with this technology because we're introduced to a concept that we've never even thought about before, and trying to not only like show people but educate people why we've been losing this stuff and giving so much power to the corporations. And yeah, like for me, I feel like that's sort of part of my job is to show and tell people what is blockchain, what is Web3, and now I'm here.
Hi, my name is Maarten. I'm the head of business development for Astar Network. How I came into the blockchain in general, I got studied in computer science, then I switched my career because I was tired of because I was doing a lot of traveling with my work, so I stopped that, and I became actually a teacher in primary school. And I teach like 14 years to children, all the basics. And then 2.5 years, I joined a hackathon to come back to my first love with computers. And I joined the hackathon with Encode. And that's the place where Polkadot also was sponsoring with other layer 1 ecosystems. And that's where I fell in love with Polkadot. And I started looking into the upcoming parachains. And that's where I came across Blossom back then. And at that moment, I felt there were some things missing. Part of this was education part about Polkadot, as well as education part about what's Blossom, what are they doing. So I started doing some tutorials, starting to work for them like in my free time. Then I got offered the position by Soto Watanabe. And now I've been working for the company for 2 years now. And yeah, I'm very excited of being here. And came from teaching children, now teaching developers on how to use Astar. Sometimes, to be honest, they act the same as the children in school, but yeah, it's very excited, and I love the passion of teaching people about not only Polkadot, but Astar network as a whole, so thank you.
I'm Bob. I'm the head of community development at Zeitgeist. My journey in crypto started in about mid-2019. I was going to school for just a general IT education and started exploring the blockchain and started learning more and more about the different ecosystems. Landed on Polkadot and realized this is something that I was really willing to pursue. At that point, I really just took a full dive into the ecosystem. Was lucky enough to know Hutch already, and just talking with him and having conversations with him. When he decided to start Zeitgeist, he brought me along with him, and yeah, I'm here now. Been working for the last year.
Great. So by now, you should see that Polkadot is just not about that relay chain itself. So it's also about the parachains that sort of run on top of it. So the panel itself is, as I see, very diverse. Like each of us have very unique background, but we all found our way to this seat today, right? So one way or the other. So I'm curious. So I was sitting at the booth outside for all day. I've got plenty of questions, but most of them are like, where do I get started? Okay, so first of all, I mean, learning about blockchain itself is so it seems like something that is esoteric or something like a magic or something that feels almost like a scam. If you just talk to the general public out there, they say, okay, so we don't even want to be involved with it, with all the public media coverage that surrounds it. And if someone actually searches for a project, all they find is a bunch of charts, analysis, price, or so the average person out there who's trying to learn about what we are doing, so all of it is covered in noise. And I personally feel there should be one centralized, I mean, in a decentralized world, there's one place where they could actually find the accurate information about what's going on. And as a technical education team, so we maintain Polkadot Wiki. So Polkadot Wiki is even though we maintain it, the contributions are open from everyone, right? So I would, given the millions of user traffic that we get, I would totally say even the parachain teams can sort of put their content on the wiki. and that's going to get a lot of like exposure, because people are going to search for Polkadot, and then you have a section dedicated to individual parachains as needed. So with that context, I want to see, like, if someone asks you, Zoe, that I want to learn about Polkadot, what would you recommend them? Like, what kind of resources would you recommend them?
I actually promote the Polkadot Wiki a lot because this is the one-stop hub where I went to when I started to learn about Polkadot. The cool thing is that it's very nicely structured, right? Learn, build, maintain. It's like very easily to read, and you can go very deep. You have like a good overview of things, even some embedded videos, from Astar and so on. But I think for someone who wants to learn a bit more high level, we also have a Polkadot Crowdcast where I put in also a lot of content. When I started as ambassador, I was like, wow, okay, again, this was pre-launch, right? Pre-Genesis blog was mine. We're like, what are we actually doing here? So I started the initiative to do like Polkadot conversations. So I was interviewing the people that are actually building Polkadot and asked them just very simple questions. What is the relay chain? How does the architecture look like? Then we went into parachains and so on. And so you will find some content there as well that hopefully helps you as well a little bit to break things, these complex things a bit more in a simpler way, breaks it down. Yeah, I think these are the two tools or channels that I would recommend today. I know that we can improve there a lot, put out more content, more webinars. I think this is always nice to hear, where people can engage also. So there's room for improvement, but these were the two ones I would recommend.
Thank you. And you can talk about Polkadot and your projects as well, like how you would want general public to get access.
Right. So I guess in terms of first contact, right? People, what's the point of entry for normal people? Well, of course, that depends on who you're, what you're trying to do and who you are. For developers, since Astar Network is a smart contract platform, we do have comprehensive developer documentation for understanding what kind of precompiled and EVM environment are available, what chain extensions on WASM is available, also what is WASM and EVM, since it's even more complex with so many different environments. But we always try to direct them by just telling them or asking them what do they want to make, just tell them what's the best option for them. So that's where I guess for developers they would go to, and another thing is for non-developers, end users who wants to use dApp staking, which for people who don't know, in Astar Network we have this custom module called dApp staking where users can stake to a smart contract that they want to support, whether to continue the development or if they support the project for various reasons. And for those people, our portal is generally where to go in. We do have documentation for those people to understand how exactly this mechanism works. And for developers, how to register for dApp staking so that they can get featured on our portal page. And so there's quite a lot of things going on in there. I would say it's always challenging, and right now it's a little bit manual. But we are working really hard on providing those video tutorials, more friendly documentation, and I guess also a clear identity instead of dividing the documentation based on its purpose instead of just cramming everything into one document, so that it doesn't confuse people too much.
Yeah, I would like to add some things to this. We have been to some events that are not focused on Polkadot, but like general blockchain events. And when we have people coming to the booth or we do a talk, last year, like the first 20 minutes of your talk, you need to explain Polkadot before you can even explain what you are doing. And that's the same when people come to the booth. So, okay, you are layer 1 blockchain, but what are you doing on Polkadot? Oh, so you are building a blockchain on a blockchain. And for people who are not used to this kind of concept, it's very tricky. And it's very difficult to explain what Polkadot does for us. So we need to educate people first about Polkadot, and then we can say, but we are doing this. And it's a challenge, and I think we already got like workflows available on how we want to present us, like trying to make it as simple as possible, keep it simple for those end users, because at some conference, most of them are end users. They are just looking to get to know of your project, want to see what's going on. And then we got other conferences where it's most about builders. Then you can really focus into the technology. But for most of the conferences that we are attending, and people coming to the booth, is more about end users. And then we have to keep it very simple. And try to avoid too much tech talk, and try to avoid too much as this. What you usually say, that's what Hoon always tell me, like, you can compare it with a continent, like Europe. So Europe is Polkadot, and then you have the countries. Each country has its own governance, each country has its own people running around. And so Europe is not doing everything, so your country is doing what they are specialized in, so like France wine or something like this. And then Europe will try to manage it somehow. And that makes it more easier for them to understand than going into the technical things, because, but then again, like going into technical, because we are so excited about Polkadot, we love to talk about what's possible. So it's like finding that balance, like expressing keeping it simple, but then again, you want to tell them, oh, but this. So that balance can be, I think we are getting better and better at it, and the same with Polkadot as well, or Parity. The education part is getting better and better, focusing on not only the build, but also like educating around the technology. So yeah, I think there's still a lot of improvement, but I think we already did like a great job for this.
And actually, I want to add to Maarten's point there too, because I think our network is now sort of getting this, hitting this maturity point where now we don't have to explain everything about Polkadot. If we're in a Polkadot booth and people are asking about like, why should I care about Polkadot? Are you guys like a smart contract on Polkadot? If they say that, then yeah, like we have to talk about like the whole concept of a layer 0, which is also even more difficult to explain, right? But if we know like we're talking to a developer, then you're like, yeah, you know what? You don't have to think about Polkadot. You don't have to think about how it works. Just we have EVM and WASM, you know, and if you want to, you can get supporters, you get community members to support your project, and then we're like, we don't have validators. And if people ask you like, whoa, how did you actually manage to do these stuff? It looks like magic. Are you guys like really centralized? And we'll be like, hey, that's the point there, buddy. So we're actually decentralized because Polkadot guarantees this stuff. And they're like, oh, Polkadot, you guys are a parachain of Polkadot. What's a Polkadot? And then we can further go on with that conversation. So I guess it's more like, for me nowadays, I'm starting to sort of change my mindset and don't think Astar as a parachain first, but as a blockchain, as a decentralized platform first and foremost. And then once people ask you, how did you manage to do this without going full on Solana? Well, we tell you we have Polkadot.
Yeah, I would just support this point. I think it's based on the maturity of the parachain, right? How mature the parachain is and your project in general, if you can already go to like user adoption. I mean, I do growth for Phala Network as well, and we provide a decentralized computation cloud. And this is very easy to grasp as we compare it to AWS or GCP and so on. And we started to pitch also about our cloud, right? Before we then say, oh, it's actually based on Polkadot. So I really want to support this point that we should go there also as a parachain, right? Because in the end, it's like we need the user adoption, and Polkadot, the customers of Polkadot are then the parachains. So it should not be our job to educate about it, but of course we love to talk about it, and it always depends on the stage the parachain is in.
Often when people approach me about Polkadot in particular, I look for what I think will be the most inspiring content to send them to. So sometimes this is interview videos with Gavin, or maybe the wiki or whatever. And then I'm very much a people person. I love to have conversations. So at that point, I just keep the communication open, and I sort of let them guide me towards what they're truly interested in, and then continue to help like facilitating the education further, and just help them find exactly what they're looking for within the ecosystem, because more often than not, it does exist. And so we're able to find it. And if it doesn't, then that's another exciting topic in itself, right? So, yeah. Right,
so from this discussion, so I can acknowledge that right now we have stuff, but there's no something that we can easily like share to people. Just like, okay, you have this resource, you look at it, now you understand what the philosophy of Polkadot is, right? So Polkadot as a chain, and then there are parachains on top of it, and like you mentioned it very well, the clients of Polkadot are parachain teams. So that brings to the next, discussion on. So forget about the end user of Polkadot in terms of like retail, like someone who's just buying tokens and then who wants to stake or do stuff. So mainly it's about like the enterprise or like there's a killer use case out there for blockchain which is yet to be explored, and Polkadot and Substrate are going to enable that killer use case to actually come to fruition, right? So there are all these big ideas about like blockchain, what it can do, and if you fundamentally look at the blockchains that are out there that can actually support such kind of technology, it's easy for a developer or someone with computer science background like me, looking at the code repositories, looking at Substrate, seeing every day it's being improved. The whole concept of runtime upgrades, where you release your code at some basic level, and you're able to upgrade it as you sort of improve without like splitting your community. All of these are like awesome ideas which are actually being implemented. And so now the developers can easily acknowledge it if we actually present that content to them, right? So that's where I sort of am very involved in. So I'm from academia, so I believe in the power of like students in general. Like the student communities are great. I'm sure you as head ambassador also know that a lot of students have that potential. You present the idea, you present the vision, and then they just gather resources to make things happen. So what I believe in is sort of creating an introductory course on Polkadot. It need not be like a long semester course. It could be something short, just like a course that you would see on Coursera or edX, right? So if there were to be an introductory course on Polkadot, again, it's not just Polkadot and parachains. What concepts would you like to see in such course that would make your job as direct or indirect educators easy, so that you can just take off with what you want to deliver instead of covering a lot of ground there? I'll start with you. As an ambassador, I'm sure you get a lot of questions. So what kind of topics would you like to be, you'd like to see presented solidly so that you don't have to deal with those questions anymore?
Yeah, I mean, the whole architecture and concept of Polkadot. This is like, I mean, you can be very generic here because you have to break it down into a lot of different aspects, right? But like really the if you talk about Polkadot itself, of course, like all the details, in the architecture itself, but then also saying, okay, why should you then build a parachain on top of it? And also separating that every parachain has its own vision, right? Because we always talk about Polkadot as a whole. Of course, we are a community and like an ecosystem, but always trying to get also all the parachains under one hood, which is not the case because we have different verticals, right, that we build on. And I think this is important to understand what the variety that can be deployed and actually developed on Polkadot. But really, if it's only about Polkadot itself, really going into the architecture and what benefit it brings to the parachains. In the wiki, we have an area where we even talk about comparisons, right, to ETH.2 and Cosmos, and I think that's very valuable because a lot of people ask about the comparison to Cosmos.
I was just asked in the booth.
Yeah, so you know about this, and it is a very valid question because, I mean, we carry the same vision, right, but fundamentally, we actually, Cosmos and Polkadot are completely set up in the opposite way, right? And I think this is very important to also cover in such course to why Polkadot was created, how it was created, and then comparing it. So to really put out the unique selling point for the parachains to launch on.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with what Zoe said. Like, it can't. probably I'll parrot some parts, but just to add my part onto it, I would say definitely like the comparison with the Cosmos is important. Everyone asks that, how does IBC and XCM differ? Of course, we always have those different aspects to it, like how the fee system works when you're making such transactions. And in Cosmos, I believe you have to have your own validators if you want to create your own blockchain. So IBC itself is sort of an actual kind of an intermediary bridge, while there is no guaranteed share security. Now, having said that, Cosmos is actually working on that. So now the comparison is even more hard to make. Well, I mean, technically there is, but for the general audience, like if Cosmos offers share security, then what else does Polkadot offer? But yeah, on top of that, in terms of substrate and making a parachain, so I would say clearly defining what's the difference between how a smart contract or dApp works versus how pallets or runtime logic works. So I think Substrate.io, the Substrate docs did a good job in explaining how it works. With smart contracts, you're working in a secure sandbox environment. You have limited capabilities. You cannot access native runtime hardware. You cannot access off-chain workers. You can only access whatever the network is providing you. Well, with pallets, sky's the limit, really. If you want to break your network, break it. No one's gonna stop you from it. And that's what, I guess like it's trying to explain that to someone who understands how blockchain works but doesn't understand how Substrate works. Could be helpful. So.
Yeah, I'll just add on top of like what you just mentioned, as some of you are aware, or most of you are aware, there's a Polkadot Blockchain Academy running, this whole month. Yeah, right now, there are over like 50 blockchain engineers or future blockchain engineers sitting and listening to lectures all day. They have DOMs in like Cambridge University, and then they're actually learning what you just mentioned. So I would say, we are one of the first, blockchain ecosystems to be doing such a dedicated school. So for me, as a technical educator, that content is a treasure chest. So what I would have spent like an entire year, trying to collect all that information on my own, because all of you do like awesome job. You all develop stuff, and to get your time to educate, about the stuff that you do is actually like chopping off a lot of productive time that you'll have as a developers. Yeah. I can see that when we ask, some of the very top-notch developers to deliver something in the education front, they always like struggle because it's tough to sort of balance their time in doing it. So for me, it's like a treasure chest. I'm very happy to share that treasure, by summarizing all of it into like a presentable content for. So we're talking about different audience here. So the technical audience are the developers who are already familiar with all the programming languages, how things work, and they just want to understand the how blockchain works. How do you write code that is tailored for blockchain? So that'll be like a very focused resource for the developers. And again, like we're all talking about like different audience here. So I just wanted to share that update that even that is being sort of covered by our ecosystem. Trying to sort of educate developers that are out there, showing them like how Substrate works, and sort of increase the overall projects in the ecosystem.
Yeah, and this is like such a pressing matter that Sean and Gavin had to fly to London to the Cambridge just teach everyone.
I just want to add to what you just said on Substrate and looking into the developer, audience. I think since, if you talk to students and they are interested about blockchain, they have heard about Bitcoin or Ethereum, right? And they know about Solidity. They at least played around with it. So I think we are really at a stage where we can compare things, right? And by comparing things, you can actually show off how good you are. So you can show and compare Substrate and pellets and so on with other tools out there. Of course, not in the way because it is not the same, but at least find a comparison so people can understand what it actually does. Because I think this is what we are not doing too much in the Polkadot ecosystem. We always say, even parachains building so cool stuff, but it's very difficult to imagine for people what it actually is because it is not possible on another chain, right? It's only possible on Polkadot itself. So by finding comparison, people at least understand what you're doing, and then you drop the ball and say, okay, but it's only possible because we build on Polkadot using substrate, right? The power of pellets. This is maybe something to include, and just to get people, a little bit, get them to understand a little bit better.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go a little bit further on that, and it's something that I would like to see available for new people entering the ecosystem is sort of a call to action, but most importantly, a unified message. And it's, we're all building something that is much, much greater than us or even a single team. And we're creating an ecosystem that's, you know, unstoppable, decentralized, all the buzzwords. But I find it's a lot of times when new people are entering the ecosystem, they're getting blasted with all of these different opinions. And like you were saying, it has to start somewhere and go to the next place. And I think it's really hammering down on a unified call to action to be able to present to new people entering the ecosystem will help to like really bring the inspiration to really try to be a part of something that's greater than yourself.
And to come to your question, what would you add to the course? I think one thing, and that's what we are currently already forgotten, what about Kusama? That's like, when people are coming, you always tell about, we also have a canary network, Kusama, Shardin, Moon River, so many. What are those compared to those on Polkadot? And I think this makes it another level of confusion as well. So I think, especially when you are making a course, do not forget about that Kusama education part.
That's in the first module of the course.
That needs to
That's
be like
guaranteed.
Then they know, okay, let's go to the canary first and then go there. Another thing that you can add as well is the governance, of course. Yeah.
But I think Kusama was a testnet for rich people.
Yeah, I think governance is a very important topic. Again, I loved your talk about it, Hoon. I think I mentioned it already 3 times throughout the last days, really comparing the governance model again to other governance models and why it is slightly centralized in Polkadot. Of course, it will be changed with also the governance 2.0, but really showing the power that we have, you know, as a token holder. And even joining councils, right? Like, I think this is something that actually the parachains learn. I mean, there are a lot of things that parachains learn from Polkadot generally, but like the council setup and the governance model is something that we always orientate ourselves based on Polkadot. There's still a lot of, you know, parachains that have not launched their council or not using the treasury, but this is such a powerful tool that is very leveraged, and yeah, every parachain is actually trying to advance this as well.
I totally agree with that. Like, so if you think of like Polkadot, it's like a democracy on chain, and then a democracy as strong as its, you know, educated citizens. So having like a detailed guide on you being in, you know, so you're part of the Polkadot blockchain ecosystem, you should be aware how you can sort of propose, you know, make a proposal for treasury or for anything to sort of take the protocol to the next level. So I think that sort of education is needed. Now, if I ask in this room how many of you can create a treasury proposal or what it takes to create a treasury proposal, I don't know, but this event itself is funded by the treasury, just so you know. So it's an important aspect, but people are not very educated about it. Like, you know, so it's right now sitting with like a very niche group, which is very involved in like governance. But expanding this further is going to make like Polkadot, you know, the actual democracy blockchain that it's meant to be. So definitely I take that point as well. So I feel explaining what governance is, understanding like what your privileges are, being part of like Polkadot ecosystem is definitely going to expand.
And just that, I think, I mean, child bounties, right? The new mechanism that we have implemented. I don't know if this exists somewhere else in other governance. So, you know, again, like maybe difficult to explain, but Very cool stuff, child bounties that are implemented now to actually decentralize the council. Much more, I'm actually working on or there is a proposal that already went through the Treasury, where we'll be hopefully become the curator of this bounty, and then can actually execute Treasury fundings through child bounties, right? So this is a whole topic on itself, but this is so cool that actually with this new mechanism that was developed to include the community more, to actually take over some specific parts that they are experts in, and decentralize the council more to actually include everyone, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I have plenty of content to cover, but I think, yeah, it sort of summarizes at least what I thought are like the really important things. I think you all gave a really good insight into that stuff. So I think we're close to ending like our discussion. I have a couple of questions for you, all of you. So one thing is, so we all are here. I think the event is taking place for a reason. Like, we want to build synergies, even though we're all part of like the same ecosystem. Like, most of us are like interacting with each other for the first time, like at least me. So I'd like to see like how we can build synergies. Just the way Polkadot, builds on top of like the services from other parachains, like, in terms of like composability, you don't have to reinvent everything or whatever. So we can bring that philosophy to sort of the way we work as well. So some teams, Web3 Foundation or some parachain teams have strong education programs. Okay, so, and some may not have the resources to put that together. Are there ways in which, like, we can form some kind of synergy where so you can bank on one particular team or a collection of teams to sort of collectively put a narrative or educational content out there that can benefit like the whole ecosystem. So go ahead.
I guess I can start. In terms of synergy between different parachain projects, I think one clear approach that we are really focusing on right now as Astar Network is XCM, like XCM, just connecting with different parachains, and you're able to transfer assets or NFTs or any message, arbitrary message, even features seamlessly with other network is such a brilliant idea, which it's the whole point of Polkadot as well, right? And yeah, the way how we want to bring synergy is as a multi-virtual machine smart contract platform, or we like to call it the innovation hub. We want to we create a bunch of set of interfaces and chain extensions that allows developers to leverage smart contracts. Leverage XCM, compose XCM instructions directly from a smart contract to access the feature of another project, another parachain. And the way how we can definitely see like this as a way to push any parachain is that now developers can mix and match features of parachains at will. If they see a good parachain, a value proposition of a certain parachain could work well with what they have in mind, and it also requires the value proposition of another parachain, then you come to Astar Network, build that right away. And we also have dApp staking, so you're incentivized for making those stuff if it provides value to the end users, so you don't have to rely on token sales. So to us, it's all about, I guess, condensedly summarizing and providing what is the unique value proposition of a certain parachain. Why would people? Why do people have to care about this? Why is it a game changer? And for us, that's how we want to bring everything together and create synergy in a product level, but also in a community level and in a feature level. So.
And regarding synergy, it's actually just getting started, because now with the XCM, you are now getting to talk with those projects or those parachains, because just opening up a channel, that's it, but building the use cases with that channel, that's the next step. And now you are able to talk and discuss and look for possibilities to do this. And then it will bring the use cases to new builders, to new users as well. I think we're just getting started, but now the synergy is getting as well. So I see this as well here in Paris as well as in Amsterdam. Projects are getting together, look, okay, let's do something now together. Now it's open, now we can do it, let's start. And now things are getting really fast for us now.
I largely agree with what both of you said, and I think that it's important to remember that we are just getting started, and I think that what we'll see in the future is a shift towards new teams that come into the ecosystem. They'll start building around use cases that are an identified need within the ecosystem with the plans to integrate into what is already here, right? So we're kind of laying the framework to allow new teams to come in and really build what needs to be built.
Yeah, and you asked also like where we can cooperate, right, between Polkadot and,
Yes.
and parachains. I think we can definitely support more the power of substrate, right? Because all parachains are using substrate, and but you can also build, of course, standalone chains with substrate. But going and most of the parachains modify, right, or create their own pellets. And I think this is something where we can really cooperate more on to say, wow, this is possible with substrate. You have all, you know, the basic pellets and so on. But these parachains are building these type of pellets to make this possible in their specific use case, you know. And then even like pellets being created between different parachains and projects. So this is something we should definitely promote more to show the power of substrate itself and how easy it is to build it, and then again getting the traction of building more parachains. Only
Great.
100, but
Yeah, so that's one more thing we want to educate on. 100 is like the hypothetical number. So when the demand rises, the devs are gonna do their work to scale it further. Yeah, so I think let's have some closing thoughts on the theme of the panel discussion, which is scaling Polkadot education, right? So what comes to your mind when you hear that theme, and then just bounce off a couple of ideas that we can take from today's panel and sort of reflect in probably next year's ParisDOT. So go ahead in this order. Yeah.
Yeah. Scaling Polkadot education for me is really going outside the Polkadot box, right? Because we all are very familiar, very passionate about Polkadot. We explain it so often. But scaling it is really to go out, to go to a Solana Hacker House, to go to a near event, Cosmos event, even, and like learning from their side, of course, but also showing them what we are doing by finding the conversation. Because in the end, we are all in the Web3 space, and everyone is pretty open to learn, right? And to have conversations. And of course, there's competition in between the ecosystems and so on. But if you find a good conversation with the people and they're open up, and I had this kind of conversation in the Solana Hacker House, actually, and they were like, oh, this is interesting, because they don't do the research by themselves, because we are all in our own bubble. And I think this will help us. Again, we are early, we are now focusing on XCM in our ecosystem, we want to communicate with each other, but this is really what will help us to go out to the other ecosystems, talk with them, and find a comparison again. I found this use case very interesting between IBC and XCM, and I really see the power in XCM also to be an outgoing, channel outside of the Polkadot ecosystem, although it was built different than IBC, but it's really, finding these type of conversations, again, compare things or try to compare it, and then really show the uniqueness of our architecture, all the tools that we are building, and why you should join Polkadot.
Very good.
Yeah, I guess for me, I'll actually go to the other different approach. So scaling knowledge in this ecosystem is when we can have a layer of abstraction, and also when we can just say it works and people can still use it. So like, for example, when back in the old days, if you wanted to make a website, you had to learn HTML, CSS, you have to understand how servers work, domains. Now, you don't even need to know any of those acronyms I mentioned and still make a pretty good website. And it just works, right? Although there's a lot of trust involved in Web 2, but with Web 3 and what we are building right now, all of us together, and a lot of people in this room as well who are aspiring to make it, I feel like if we can just say it works for something that is permissionless, that is trustless, then that would be a true revolution for sure. And we want to go there. We don't want to have Polkadot or Parity or Web3 do everything for us, but when parachains can be self-sufficient in their own education and just provide that abstraction. You don't even have to mention about XCM. Just say like, load this address from this contract, use these parameters, and boom, you just use the feature from another parachain, but you don't even know about it, and it works. just works. That's what I would say is true scaling.
Yeah, I agree totally with what Zoe was saying. Getting out there to the new users who are not coming here to this venue, who are actually like on the other side. Why not put a shadow at that event and be there as Polkadot, but all Paris chains as well. And when the people come in and you say, no, but go to that booth, those guys are doing that on Polkadot. And then you can educate and see the power, what's possible with Polkadot. And it would be great that we can go out with Polkadot and all the Paris chains together, and not everybody a single booth, but like a big thing inside a big venue where others are as well. Then people can really be educated about Polkadot and compare as well at the same time to others. But not again, I do like this kind of event because it's like coming home to a family. So then it's like really nice as well, so yeah.
Yeah, so going further along that point, actually, and also remembering that, we're still early or whatever, I think that consistency in events like this will actually be very productive in allowing for us to have more reach to other people. Right now, it's very scrappy. It's, the question is, are you going to go to ParisDOT, right? Whereas when you think of FCC, the question is, are you going to FCC this year, right? Everybody knows where it's at. Everybody knows that it's going to be there. And I imagine that when it started, it was very similar to what we see here today, right? And so establish that consistency, and that will allow us to scale in a way that will be very meaningful.
Yeah, thank you very much. Are we taking questions from audience, or does anybody have anything to ask? Yeah, this was very insightful. I'm very glad we had this discussion.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I had a question. Really insightful. To what extent do you think it's important to start scaling the Polkadot and just the Web3 education in general to the younger generations?
And get them in younger, you mean like just
Yeah, like grade school and
teach them,
stuff.
yeah, teach them about how cryptocurrencies work to like a 12-year-old. To younger audience. That's a good question, actually, because I mean, yeah, of course, like to an at some point you have to explain how this kind of thing works. I'm explaining in a weird way right now, but I would say we're too early at the moment. I don't know, like when I was in grade school, I didn't learn anything about programming at the time. Just had to do it myself. But I know nowadays programming is like part of the curriculum. For Web3 though, I guess blockchain technology as a whole, there's so many aspects to it. Are you going to teach them trading? I mean, I wouldn't want to. No. Yeah. Do you want to teach them how to YOLO your life away, or do you want to teach them how decentralized system works? Yeah, it's really hard to say.
Yeah, I think I can take. I mean, I can give my insight about this one. So a lot of what the vision of Polkadot, I mean, it's centered about like what Web3 should be. So Web3, so anybody who's introduced to like internet, the way it works. So at that level, you could also say, there is this new paradigm of how internet can work. That can be in school, at the university level. I definitely feel like there should be a dedicated course exploring like blockchain and all of the ecosystems out there. Yeah, so depends. Like you can always, I mean, we have social studies as part of school, right? So we learn about democracy and different ways like countries work. And now there exist like these blockchain nation states, which are like these this new wave of like reorganizing people across the globe. So it's interesting. You can put the concepts from what we're doing at different levels. You don't have to teach them about relay chain and parachain in schools, but definitely the philosophy itself can be delivered.
But even Polkadot itself, I think, should be then included. So I'm a big promoter of like educating students, like the youngest people, you know, because it's very obvious that they get very excited about it, and you can still like, you know, create this, develop a skill set with them together. And we do this actually at, I as an ambassador for Polkadot, but also with Phala network, actually cooperating with universities and giving these kind of like workshops, and then even hiring interns that work on projects, right, with us through these introduction courses that we provide. And I love introducing Polkadot and really going into Polkadot directly, because you can always, again, most of them have heard about Bitcoin and Ethereum. Maybe if they're not a developer, they have not played around with it, but they heard about it, you know, and they can somehow understand it. And Polkadot's very good to compare them, because about the interoperability part, right? We always explain like you have several internets, right? And Polkadot actually connects it like this. And I think this is, once you just say, okay, there's Bitcoin, Ethereum, and you don't go either like much more deeper into it, and then really dive into Polkadot, you can actually fascinate them a lot with it. So they do their own research maybe in the end itself and understand it, how special it is.
I guess I actually want to add one more thing too. So the general perception by the public of blockchain, they always associate it with crypto. It's always about the gains that they think about, and unless we can sort of separate that perception, tell them what's the difference. If people can acknowledge the difference between a decentralized platform versus cryptocurrency or storage of value, then I think we might actually have something interesting to say to the general public, to a younger audience, for sure.
I think that it's important not to contextualize it as the younger audience, but more so as the next generation of what is going to be coming into. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, in my opinion, the next generation will probably be better than us, and the generation after that will probably be better than them. And then furthermore,
We hope.
yeah, right. Yeah. Furthermore, I think that it is a really good idea to leverage into universities and really tap into people that are in a mindset of learning already, and really try to satiate their interest in learning something new, right? So yeah.
Yeah, and I think it will be really like implemented into, you know, at least like the Web3 mindset, and like even like blockchain technology into these courses, because I mean, all of us, when we meet each other and then talk about like our careers, or is always the question, what did you do before entering the space? What did you do before blockchain or crypto? And I'm very convinced at one point there's this question, I mean, you don't ask this question anymore, you know, because people study it, people learn about it in school, and they directly start their IT career, right? Or they directly start to study, I don't know, physics or so on. So it's really like that we integrate it more and more into the educational part, and then, yeah, have like all the blockchain developers and educators around us.
Yeah, I mean, like, since Bobby mentioned like contextualizing as a next generation, being part of a curriculum for like a higher education as well. Actually, that does put things into a different light, because I was thinking of like a literal child learning about it, which I was like, yeah, I mean, why would you like?
Danger zone.
Yeah. But that's true. Like now, imagine if there is. I know a lot of courses do talk about blockchains nowadays. It's like you cannot separate them anymore, and so like what Zoe said as well. We assume that whoever did blockchain before had another profession. Although for me, it's kind of interesting because my first ever job, full-time job, is at Astar. Yeah, so like and my first ever Rust project was also Substrate. So I'm like I like to consider myself a Web3 native, in a sense. So yeah, so it's
You're the poster child of, you know, Substrate and Polkadot.
actually, yeah, maybe, maybe.
Any other questions for the panel? Or something that you would like to see in a Polkadot course? Oh, there's a hand up there.
Hello. What I would love to see is like a lot of entertainment. Like if you learn something, the most difficult thing is to keep focus. So things have to be fun, especially if you come from the Solidity thing. I did a course 4 years ago. It was the most boring course ever. It was hard to understand because it was a hard dialect. And now the courses which are now available, they are fun, they're energetic. It's like, yeah, you're now of a new age of revolution. Feels cool, but the information is the same. So yeah, really the feeling is important as well, not just the information, especially for learning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. So entertainment is one thing, but so having the experience of developing like a MOOC, like an online course that runs on itself, there is research on how much attention span a learner can have when they're like learning new stuff, like Polkadot technology, Rust, or Substrate. Actually, that attention span is diminishing like every year in the research studies. So the videos now, the ideal time for every single video is about like 3 to 4 minutes. So you have to package your concept. Like let's say I'm talking about Kusama. I can't talk more than 4 minutes in that video, but that 4 minutes should be concise enough that covers like every single important point about like Kusama. So definitely we'll bring in like all that research into like how learning can be facilitated in such a course. But yeah, so definitely they should have some entertaining content in them as well. I'm not good with jokes, but I can like sort of hire people who can like create these animations or jokes in there. But yeah, so point taken. Like so making sure the courses are not boring. They're very concise and they deliver like what they're supposed to deliver.
I think I could sort of rephrase that question. So instead of being entertaining, or I mean, definitely important, but also, I guess you can rephrase it as engaging. How could you make a project
learner
engaging,
engagement,
right? Yeah, and with Ethereum, a lot of Solidity projects are engaging because you have crypto zombies, you have crypto kitties, you have, and even Substrate.
Substrate.
Yeah, early years. That's how I actually learned Substrate is through the crypto kitty, the palette. Yeah. It's fun because you see things moving, you see things actually happening as you go, and everyone loves games, everyone loves visual stuff, right? And I think blockchain has the least visual stuff in any development. Even with servers, you can render hello world, but with blockchain, what are you gonna do? Like, make a token named hello and another token named world. So it's, yeah, like, I do think we will definitely benefit from having those. But that is also something that will definitely be improved as time goes and as more people with different perspective joins in this ecosystem, develop something that's just stupidly fun. Like imagine a blockchain with that's all about saying good morning and good night, which is, yeah, GM or die.
I think we have a parachain that's running for an auction.
Oh yes,
GM.
yeah,
Yes.
GM or die.
Yes. Yeah, you can check that out on Polkadot.js right now. Then. Cool, it's been a great discussion. I'd like to end it here. I think we have break now, have coffee, and then be ready for these sessions like later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.